Liberal Senator in Victoria, Jane Hume. Now, Jane, you just heard that there from Andrew Clennell. It is really no surprise, is it, that Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, would have kept the Prime Minister informed as much as he could as this investigation was going on.
What is surprising, though, Laura, is how long it's taken the government to act on this. This is the most egregious act of foreign interference that we've seen in Australia probably since the Cold War. And yes, the Coalition will back all the way any efforts that are taken to expel Iranian foreign influence in Australia. But why the government hasn't acted earlier is up to them to explain, because the Coalition have been calling for the IRGC to be listed as a terrorist organisation for more than 2 years now. In fact, it was back in February 2023 that Senator Claire Chandler's committee reported on this and recommended that the IRGC be listed as a terrorist organisation. Now, that was in response to the Mahsa Amini's death in custody, in police custody, and the uprisings that had been occurring since then. The Iranian diaspora in Australia had expressed some concerns about foreign interference. They said that there was surveillance and stalking and harassment, which was the reason why the Coalition pursued this through the Senate committee process. Our recommendation was that the IRGC be listed as a terrorist organisation. The government said no. In fact, when James Patterson, Simon Birmingham and Claire Chandler wrote to Penny Wong, to Mark Dreyfus and to Claire O'Neill, they came back and said that because the IRGC is an organ of the state, there was no way that they could list it as a terrorist organisation. Now, back then, the Coalition said, well, we will help you. We will help you change the legislation so that you can list it. And they refused. In fact, they accused the Coalition of beating this up, of scaring people unnecessarily. Well, now it's up to them to explain why they didn't listen to the warnings in the first place, why they ignored the Iranian diaspora in Australia, because it's come at a terrible cost.
But do you think that you should be acting on the information or complaints of the Iranian diaspora, not our own intelligence?
Well, no, absolutely. We should be relying on intelligence, and clearly the Prime Minister has been briefed throughout this process. But when a diaspora speaks and asks for help, it's important to listen.
Sure.
And let's face it, the government did not listen to the Iranian community.
But you say this
Australia
has come at a terrible cost for not designating this organisation earlier. If this organisation had been designated a terror group earlier, do you think these anti-Semitic attacks would have happened?
Well, I can't speculate on that. We can't speculate on the exact extent of interference, foreign interference from another country. But certainly a government could front-foot it. They knew the risk was there. It was in black and white. The Coalition pointed it out and warned the government and said we would help them to do it, and they failed to do it. Now it's up to the government to explain exactly why they ignored those calls. From credible sources, with a lot of thorough investigation through a Senate committee process, and requests from the appropriate shadows from the Coalition to the government, completely ignored.
All right. As a senator from Victoria, I do want to ask you about the shocking events of yesterday. We've heard from the Police Commissioner, Mike Bush, this man, Desi Freeman, a madman by all accounts, and now an alleged police killer, still at large. He calls himself a sovereign citizen, Jane. Do we need to, after all the dust has settled after this, and we grieve for the families and we want to throw our arms around them, but in the not-too-distant future, do we need to perhaps consider stronger laws and protections for communities that are living next to or near these self-declared sovereign citizens?
Look, that's probably a decision for the police. Of course, let me first of all just extend my condolences to the families of the 2 police officers that have lost their lives. This is a tragic incident, a truly tragic incident in a beautiful town. Porepunkah is a lovely place, but really a fabulous community. I've been there many times and stayed there myself. This must be very confronting for the community there. But I think most importantly, we have to take the lessons learned from this tragic experience. We will have to ask the police what it is that they need to make sure that they are protected while they are simply serving out their jobs in the line of duty. What the appropriate response is, I simply don't know. I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't speculate. But should there be a response? Absolutely.
Jane, thanks so much. Good to talk to you.